An old Jewish legend tells that once King Solomon asked a jeweler to design a ring and inscribe on the ring band the words which will be true and appropriate for all times and all situations. And a talented jeweler designed a beautiful ring, and on it he inscribed the words, "These too shall pass." Dearly beloved in Jesus Christ, welcome to the reflections of 32nd Ordinary Sunday, Year A. On this Sunday, the liturgy of the Word welcomes us to meditate upon eschatological realities in the words of wisdom. The first reading, which is taken from the book of Wisdom, the author clearly tells wisdom goes to the one who readily accepts and welcomes her into the heart. And in the Gospel passage, Jesus speaks about 10 virgins. Among them, 5 were wise and 5 were foolish. Hence, the liturgy of the Word helps us to understand the eschatological realities using the wisdom that God gives all of us. Dear friends in Christ, when we speak about eschatological realities, two things come to our mind: death and the end times or the judgment day. When we meditate upon these two realities, sometimes our lifestyle of living in this world becomes more meaningful and more careful. Let's first understand about the notion of death. Martin Heidegger, one of the existential philosophers, he speaks about death as certain and uncertain. It is certain because the humanity is sure that occurrence of death would take place. And also he says it is uncertain because the time of its occurrence is unknown to man. Therefore, Heidegger says, death is a reality which is both certain and uncertain, and for this reality, man has to prepare himself carefully. Death is an equivocator. Death is a scale which can balance our sin and our good activities. That's why it can be called as an equivocator. Saint Jerome once says, death is a blessing, sometimes more beautiful than life itself. God allowed the death to enter into the world so that sin will be removed from the world. Dear friends, when we think about our death or when we are on the deathbed, we really become good people. That's why Saint Jerome says the thought of death is a blessing. But sadly, the thought of death comes to us only we are on a deathbed or when we are in a crisis. Sometimes the thought of death becomes useful for us to better our lives. The second notion that comes to our mind when we think about eschatological realities is the end times or the judgment day. And for this too, we are called to prepare ourselves. Matthew presents Jesus as the greatest teacher. In the Gospel of Matthew, we have 5 major discourses on different topics. And the last discourse is presented in chapter 24 and 25, which is titled as Eschatological Discourse. Eschatology deals about present times in relation with end times. In presenting these discourses, Matthew, through Jesus Christ, helps his disciples and all of us to live a life more meaningfully so that when we come to the end times, we will have a meaningful life after. The context of the parable is revealing. When Jesus speaks about these end times, the disciples ask, Lord, when shall it be? And what will be the signs that we will see when these things occur? And Jesus tells them the signs, but says the time of its occurrence will be known only to God the Father. In saying so, He tells his disciples to prepare themselves in this present time that is available to them, so that when the end times or the judgment day comes, they will not be facing the same fate of those foolish virgins who were shut outside the banquet hall. The disciples and the Christians cannot afford themselves to stand outside when their master is inside. Now the basic question remains how to prepare. In explaining what is preparedness, Jesus speaks about two men who built their houses on different foundations. One building the house on a rock solid foundation which withheld any kind of storm bearing its threat. Jesus describes this is a man who prepared himself for the future. He also presents a second man who made his house on a sand, and the house was destroyed because it was not made on a solid foundation. Therefore, the one who prepared his house on a solid rock is a prepared one, and one who built a house on a sand is unprepared and careless one, just like those 5 foolish virgins in today's gospel passage. The gospel presents two attitudes of the humanity. The first 5, who are described as wise, they received the invitation, accepted the invitation, and also diligently prepared themselves for the reception of the bridegroom. And the second group is described as foolish virgins who also received the invitation, but they took it for fun. They took it carelessly and then they participated it just for the namesake. And the fate is they were thrown out into the outer darkness. Therefore, dear brothers and sisters in Jesus Christ, as we meditate upon the 32nd liturgy of the Word, let's understand the eschatological realities. We are asked to prepare for these realities so that when they occur, without knowing our timing, we will not fall into the trap of the Satan. Let God bless us all. Have a blessed Sunday.